I should come out like it. They would be little by waking up in the morning. All the time. But he doesn't say that, but he could work. Yeah, right. Find that item. My reason. But he would feel at home. Very hard. It would be boring. You know, with veterans health. Yeah, but it wasn't. That would have been there. I think after the years of that, they were. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Yeah, that's not like you're talking about that. Years ago. Yeah. Not gonna go with it. Yeah, it was an I've heard some stories. And we were both. Come to the meeting. We're not really going to say that. This is. Oh, I can see that. I think it's been a lot of years.
Yeah.
Been over. Even interested.
Yes.
Like even they got. I can be up in an hour. Okay. Here, and that's just how it's back. So. Hey. Another trailer park.
All right, everyone, it's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. All rise for the pledge.
We know that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Attendance, Nick?
Yes, Jamie Melky.
Here.
John Leo.
Here.
Matt Bulgara.
Here.
Nancy Rondell.
Here.
And John Cox.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Yes. And for citizens' comment, if you have anything that's not on the agenda, now is your opportunity.
Rebecca back is 500 West Summit. Victor, I got in the mail, I think everybody did, this card with discussion on the village for the police and fire. I was wondering if you could answer and let me know if anything in there is true. Have you guys seen this?
It's not from us, but
No, it's not from you, but I'm just wondering, there's all kinds of points on it. Whether what they said on there is true or not.
if the council wants me to go over it, I can bring it back to the next meeting or not. It's up to you.
When did you get it?
Before the election.
Before the election, yeah. Oh.
There's a, you know, there's a lot of information on that card. I don't know if anybody else got that card. But,
Is that something I could make a copy of real quick?
sure.
I'll do it then. Sure, kind of. You know how to do two-sided over there, boss? I'll do one-sided, one-sided. That's what I was gonna do.
And my other question was, how long is there gonna be a bucket truck holding the Christmas tree? I mean, that's an expensive truck, free.
I'm not sure how long it's gonna be holding it up.
Probably as long as the winds are predicted over 50 mph, they'll have something there holding it.
Okay, so there is a point where the truck will go away and the tree will stand up.
Yeah, you hope so.
I'll check with my.
Right now, it's a precaution, from what I understand, it's a precautionary thing with the high winds we've had.
Well, I sort of suspected that, but I, you know, I wasn't sure of that, because I was there when they lifted the tree up to put it in the manhole, and it fell, slammed down. They were lifting it, and then it fell over the tree, and
It's a process.
I just want to make sure we're safe, but we don't free falling on somebody.
And we don't want that either.
Is this the first tree you've ever had problems with?
No.
No.
There's been ones over the decades, you know, it goes back 100+ years. There's trees blowing down on Main Street and not the first one, but
Okay.
first one on our watch.
First one in recent times.
And that's,
And I say Victor can look at that.
yeah,
She
I would appreciate it.
get you some answers. Good. Anyone else for public comment? Yeah, I guess we'll get into the consent agenda. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
No, I sent Nick one typo in one of the minutes. You were both here and absent.
Right.
Other than that, I didn't find anything that make a motion to approve.
I'll say. Okay.
Judd Cups.
Yeah.
Matt McGira.
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yep.
Don Leo.
Yes.
Jamie Melky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Now we get into the meeting.
Yeah, all right. First item, 2023 proposed budget. This is not meant to be a discussion on the budget. It's just we're presenting the budget to you, the amended 2022 budget and the proposed 2023 budget. If you take the next week to look over the narrative and the numbers, and then we will have the public hearing next Monday at 7 p.m. Here to discuss basically public hearing the budget, and we'll also have a presentation though on the budget as well as on the CIP, the capital improvements plan, like we did last year. And then the December 19th, so that's where the public can ask questions there and council can ask questions. We can work out through any changes that might be needed in the budget. And then at the December 19th meeting, that's when the council will vote to approve the budget as proposed. If there's any more information, however you need, if you want to bring that up here, or if you want, to email us, ask Nick or I, we'd be more happy to provide that in the presentation. But what you see is in your binders as well as the budget as well as the CIP. So if there are any questions or thoughts right now, I mean, we can answer any right now, but we'll have the presentation for the public next Monday.
Start reading it tonight. and I'm sure I'll have a couple questions for you before it's over.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. So I look at all of those pages. Item 3B is a discussion on the substation analysis of the sites that we looked at. So we had a few meetings about this, and we talked that we were going to look at private properties, and we did look at 3 different private properties that were near and around Hoyt Road. We had a site analysis prepared for them. Michael McGee, our engineer, prepared those site analysis. We approached those property owners, and none of the 3 property owners were interested in giving us an easement or selling their property for substation. So then that led us back to our 2 original public sites, which are here where behind the police station by the Deer Park and on Lake Road in the wooded parcel. We did some designing of how they would be located at the parks, so we fit them in there. For example, this one is the police station. And it shows you, as you can see from the bottom of the screen, City Hall is right here at the bottom, police station, and then as you go up, it would be located, take off this drive right here, if I have the pointer with me, but off the driveway right here, it goes to the police station, it would go into where the Deer Park kind of is right now, and the substation would be there. We've tried around, Michael can talk to it, but we've talked about different orientations and layouts of it, but this is one that takes advantage of the best of the existing driveway and roadway there. And of course, we've seen the previous one at the wooded parcel on Lake Road, which we had prepared. So then there's a write-up for each of the parcels and a more detailed estimate of the cost. And the cost that you see does not include screening like a brick wall. And we got that quote, for example, when we talked about potentially doing a brick wall for the substation was located here to match the brick of these buildings. We just received that quote after we prepared the packet. And it was an estimate roughly around $200,000. It's not an exact quote, but it's an idea of what it would cost additionally to do a brick wall. So comparing apples to apples, the cost roughly here at Deer Park location is about $3 million, $2.5 million at the wooded parcel. This location is neighbored by mostly city-owned properties as well as a conservancy property. While the one at the Deer Park, which is 710 East Lake Road, that is neighbored by the city, school, and residential properties, so it's more of a mix. The terrain here is flat and open. The terrain at the wooded parcel is flat but wooded. They're both equal on the length of the distribution circuits with road short runs. One of the significant cost increases here is that it would have a lengthier 46 kV underground transmission lines. And so that's what kind of adds to the cost for this project. Construction to the land, here you'd have to shift or relocate the Deer Park potentially south. The disruption to the land at the other parcel is removing a number of trees. And then the access would be from Lake Drive at the wooded parcel and from this police drive here. Michael, I don't know if you want to go over some more details or talk about the process of developing these site analysis.
Certainly, and Victor, thank you. A very good summary of the work that we did on all 5 of the sites and used that radius of about 3,000 feet around the existing center of the distribution circuits to first identify what parcels might be available, what might be usable as far as size, terrain, zoning, et cetera. We looked at all 5 of those sites. As Victor said, the 3 that were privately owned after the analysis brought to those property owners that they were not in agreement at all to sell their parcels for the substation. But we did do the same analysis, went through a number of items. Again, as Victor said, we looked at the ownership, the size, the zoning, the vegetation. Do we need easements to get in and out? The impacts visually, what's the impact visually to the neighbors, to the community as a whole? The proximity, again, to the existing distribution circuits and that existing transmission line that will be the source for this substation. And then obviously the costs. What's the cost differential? Updated the costs for these 2 sites along with the other 3 that we assessed to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples and not using old information the way that costs right now are, especially raw materials in our industry are fluctuating so fast. It is difficult to keep up with that. So of the 2 sites here that are being presented, the Lake Road, the Wooded Triangle, and the Deer Park,
Victor, thank you again for looking through and summarizing what we looked at for the comparison between the two sites. Your biggest item is really between the two, other than cost, is the open site down here behind the police station, and your wooded site up on Lake Road, which is going to take a rather significant amount of trees in the area around the substation, and then obviously taking enough out to protect these critical assets that are going to be placed in to provide the updated and more reliable service to the city customers. So that, again, good summary between. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I can certainly answer questions on the work that we did here to do this analysis, and continue to help with the ideas and thoughts of that architectural wall that could be used really at either site to help with that visual impact of how we can make this substation flow into the area where it is, and visually match as opposed to being what some may be considered to be an eyesore, even though it's a needed essential part of the electrical system.
Thanks, Michael. And I guess the goal here today is not to really make a detailed plan, really. The goal is to decide which site we want to come back with more details before we move that onto the planning commission. So, I think we're at the process where we need to narrow down which site we want to pick, and then we can work with our engineer to bring out more details, such as, all right, if it's here, get the precise measurements, get exactly what kind of vegetation needs to be removed. Same thing at the wooded lot, if that's chosen, exactly, what kind of trees need to be removed, et cetera. What kind of replanting, what kind of vegetation screening, and we'll get more in detailed. But this is more of an overview of, comparing the apples to apples on both sites. But yeah, so that's the goal here, is to narrow down to one site and bring back more details, and then go to the planning commission.
Two questions. Do the budgets include, and on the lake property, does it include the cost of removal of the trees?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes.
And then the budget for this location here next to the police department does not include any screening cost.
That is correct. No screening.
Does it include a fence?
Yes.
Includes a fence?
Both sites include costs for a standard chain link safety fence with barbed wire on the top. So that's apples to apples.
Right, but no allowance for any kind of screening, whether, just wanted to be sure.
Brick screening is an additional.
Yeah, but even now, even evergreen, any kind of screening, it's incremental to what we're looking at.
We're gonna hold public comment for a minute. Yeah. So it's big chunk of change, depending where we put it.
Yeah.
The lesser of two evils is down here. Yes. Yes.
Nothing's gonna be perfect. I'm a little, something we haven't talked about is the security of the site. I don't know if you guys saw the news today about Charlotte and all that happened there. I feel like it's a little more secure down here, where there's nighttime presence, police coming and going at night, those kinds of things. That's part of it for me. I'm tending to down here. It seems to fit better with, I know there are issues with it. I live across the street. I know there are issues with it, but I think in terms of residential closeness, the one up top has a lot more of that, and school activities. So tough choice. Tough choice.
Yeah, I would agree with you about the security
That
issue.
makes me a little bit down here, I feel like.
Sadly, that's a concern.
Unfortunately, and if you lived down here too, it wouldn't be as obtrusive, I don't think it's like that.
Right.
So that's just
On the lighting issue, there's no plan that there would be lights on the facility at all times.
Correct, correct. It's an operational decision for the city, but my understanding would be that it would not be lit. And that is actually typical for municipal substations, that they are not lit 24/7. Maybe a small entrance downlight just for entering, but floodlights are available and only turned on when operations need to occur at night, which obviously is very rare.
Any motion type lighting?
Generally,
Thinking about security again, if something or someone were to approach the fence, would there be lights that would come on?
that can be designed in if needed. Generally, we're seeing security cameras, that work very well at night as well. But if you don't have somebody monitoring those,
Can't do you any good.
yeah.
Well, there's no security camera allowance in here, but there's a whole industry about, motion cameras and alerts and all that. I think that's to be considered down the road, either location.
Want to hear what the public says? All right, who wants to go first? Good.
Thank you. Henry Hoffman, CEO, resident of your engineering background. I hear concerns about visual safety and hear many concerns. I don't hear any personal safety concerns. Substation has a high amount of energy to it, a high amount of energy. They're reliable, but they're not 100% reliable. Accidents happen. I don't know if you've stepped it off, but I know at Lake Road, 12 yards, you're in a residential area, first of all, which is a no-no from my background. 12 yards, you're in a residential yard. 15 yards, you're in a little league playground. 15 yards, you're in a parking area where parents and teenagers are playing soccer, and another 5-10 yards, you're off into the field. The energy in that substation can impact all of that. Unlikely, low risk. But if I had an engineering firm and they weren't bringing personal safety to the forefront of where you locate this, I'd find another firm. Seriously. That's shameful.
Hi, I'm Bill Riesenbeck. I live on East Lake Road, right across the street from where they live with the place. I want to thank everybody for considering this. I would like to point out that I think the city council should listen to the citizens. At the September 19th meeting, the council was presented with a petition signed by over 80 local residents requesting the Lake Road triangle of trees be preserved and protected rather than destroyed to install an electrical substation. Not one single person I have spoken with since that meeting who is aware of the council's idea thinks this spot is appropriate place for an industrial installation. I, along with the other petitioners, would like council to exclude the Lake Road parcel in their search for a new substation location. We respectfully request that if upgrading the current location, which is where it was moved to with the current infrastructure, is not feasible, I do understand both the transformers are going to have to be replaced and a lot of the switches are going to have to be replaced. We would ask that you focus on putting the substation down here where it would make more sense, would be better observed. You wouldn't have the safety concerns, you wouldn't have the safety issues. It just seems like it makes more sense. And everyone that I've spoken to believes this is a better choice. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Chip Everest at 4 Beach Drive, a residential area right next to where the deer park. So it would be. Just a point of clarification, I guess, for you or Victor. Apples to apples, this site down here costs $2.5 million.
3 million.
3 million down here, plus the cost to relocate the deer park. Plus the fencing,
No, fences.
I mean, plus the, if we had
If
a,
we put a brick wall.
yeah, brick wall versus 2.5 up there. So I mean, it's at least $500,000 cheaper to put it up there than down here. Is that, am I getting the numbers right?
Roughly.
Yes.
Close enough.
Okay.
Yes, this is Scott Hanna from Columbus, Ohio. Can you hear me all right?
Hold on, Scott. We're gonna go to the Zoom after we do people in person.
All right.
Me again. What is there a cost to recycle what we already have? Wherever it is there a cost to dismantle that? Is that in there?
That'll still be
It'll
there.
still be there.
That'll still, that stays there, so it'll be that plus this. Okay. I didn't know that.
It's an expansion of our current system.
Okay.
Hey, my name is Mitchell Gert. I live at 631 East Lake Street. There's a lot of things that aren't known yet about this. I was curious about if it does go in the wooded area, does the free removal of someone's gonna profit from them trees. Is that gonna offset the cost of the build, or will it go into general fund? So just a question, don't expect an answer. But I think it's a valid question. As I stated in a letter to the editor in the local newspaper, I was excited to hear about the plans for an electrical substation. But when I found out that it was going to be at the cost of destroying a stand of trees that is located adjacent to Bay Bluffs Medical Care Facility, as well as a sports complex, I was dumbfounded. Why on God's green earth to take a pristine piece of real estate and turn it into an ugly industrial installation? I live just down the road from that area and I go past it every single day, as do the residents and the students of Harbor Springs. Not to mention, the ball fields are right there too, and there will be a lot of people, both locals as well as those from out of town, who will be frequenting this area. Nothing says welcome to Harbor Springs like an electrical substation. This type of installation is necessary to ensure that our citizens will have reliable energy delivered to their homes and businesses, but to locate an electrical substation in this location is absurd. This being such a beautiful spot, if the powers that be feel that they should utilize this area, how about putting something there ecologically and educationally relevant instead of an electrical monstrosity that will only put pressure on the property values? I have to ask, how many of you people here would buy a home next to an electrical substation? There are far better places to locate this proposed substation except just the 2 places you found. How about next to the electrical department? There's lots of room down there. I understand it. That the area here at the Harbor Police Station is going to be considered. Why do we even need to have this discussion in the first place? Let's get this idea off the table and spare this area along Lake Road. After all, it is called Lake and not electrical. And in closing, I want to ask one more question. Why are we here? Why are we here? We care about our city, but if this substation is going to go in there, then what good is it that we're here voicing our concerns if we have no say in the decision-making process? That's a question. Anybody have an answer?
No, if you're asking a question, you do have a say because you're here providing public comment, and we'll go to planning commission where people have a say as well. So you do have a say.
I'm just asking, do we have a legitimate say, or is it going to go wherever you decide you're going to feel it fits best?
Council was elected. I mean, they're the ones that make the choice, but
Okay.
we have public comment.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not myself, but many of us, and the one I walked around and
You have to
did.
tell us your name and where you live.
What?
You have to tell us your name and where you
Oh.
live before you start.
Julie Zorhoff, and I live on Lake Street.
Very good.
I'm the one that walked around and gathered all the names and the petitions and, just their signatures alone don't say how upset people are that you would put it at that corner and tear down those trees. And nobody's really talking about the cost of lives, and there's a huge health risk. I know, like he said, or somebody said, that the health risk with the high voltage transformers in the area are detrimental to the people, are the children and the adults in the care facility. And why the heck would we put it right there? So there's ongoing studies with leukemia, neurological problems, and other cancers that are continuously ongoing, and that doesn't seem to be a care with some of it, maybe the engineers and stuff. So that's it.
As far as integrating it into a site,
Can we state your name?
oh, I'm sorry, I did too. I'm Wendy Furshey and I live at 2728 East Lake Road. And, you know, as you were mentioning a wall, I don't see any way that you can integrate a wall into the wooded space, that it doesn't integrate in that way. Down here it would, there are other walls. And the other thing is that, again, I think that the photo used is in the full-fledged summer with all those green leaves. If you go by there now, you can see right through it. And I don't understand quite how it would be screened properly. And then it would require maintenance. And, you know, I heard the discussion, you don't have that included in the price, but I think it's something to think about if you're going to indeed screen it. But thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Don Malosky. I'm here on behalf of the Weaverton Landowners Association. And their thinking is similar to what this man just mentioned about, aren't there other sites more appropriate for this we can focus on? I know the three property owners said those, in the minutes at least, said those were ideal sites. And is there a way to approach these people again? I obviously offer more money. I don't know if that was ever discussed. Or just put this somewhere in a more commercial setting. I don't know what else is available. But you've got essentially the same arguments for both Lake Street and the Deer Park, right? People that live by the Deer Park don't want it. People that want Harbor Springs to be nice when they come into town. On the the north side of the street, you've got all that flowers in the summer, lights in the winter. You've got lights here at City Hall, so obviously it's important to have this look nice. You don't want a substation here, I don't think. And I appreciate the people that live on Lake Street, they don't want a substation next to them. There's got to be a better solution, I think, that somewhere, some type of a commercial setting, facility, that you can maybe just reanalyze. I'm not sure if you've done that or not. And even if it's a matter of more cost, I still think you'd be better off in the long run to spend money to put it where it belongs instead of putting it where people are just going to be unhappy.
What else?
Zoom? If there's anyone on Zoom, please raise your hand and I will call on you. No, W. Scott, Hannah, you had a question earlier.
Yes, can you hear me? This is
Yeah.
Scott here. I live over at Marina Village. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, please go. Yes.
Okay, I'm down in Columbus, Ohio, and yes, the Ohio State Buckeyes did back into the bowl. But anyways, my question is, it sounds like, I appreciate the comment from the landowners, the folks on the Lake Street. You know, it sounds like nobody's saying the site is actually going to be attractive. It's sort of, I think the word was site ugly. So again, maybe it makes some sense to look elsewhere. And, you know, and if it's the difference of the two and it's going to be site ugly, you know, it's a $500,000 savings going up the street. Not that it's ultimate to go, but that's a lot of money. And there was some concern about security. $500,000 buys a lot of security.
Thank you. Jennifer Schaefer.
Hi, thank you. I'm here on behalf of John and Lisa Richter. I live on Pennsylvania Avenue in the Weaverton Land Association. I wanted to just clarify, it sounds to me like with the Zoll Street, the Deer Park location, the budget or the costs that are estimated on the proposal do not include anything for additional screening. That seems to be an issue that there certainly should be screening no matter where it's located, because it's a main road into the association, into very nice properties that if this is going to be located there, there should be some screening around it, and that should be included in the consideration of cost, as well as it sounds like there's no budget or inclusion of cost consideration for security cameras. Security sounds like it's a big issue, and certainly that should be included. Also relocating what the park area is used for, whether or not it's specifically the deer park, but it's taking up a park area, and again, in a very nice entrance to the city and residential communities, where certainly would expect to see some kind of park area, not an industrial complex. And I think it would behoove the council to consider possibly having a bit more analysis on the real cost, again, because these could add up to rather substantial amounts that further make the Zoll Street Deer Park location even more expensive than the 3 million already estimated. And also, I certainly join in the concern of the people on Lake Road with regard to the safety of having high voltage, electricity in an area where even in the Deer Park, there are going to be tourists and people running around in that area. It's a nice area, it's a park area. They may well visit City Hall. Again, it just seems like there has to be a few more options than what we have here. In particular, buying a piece of property somewhere else may end up in the long run being more cost effective if you don't have to look at these other issues with screening, relocation of parks, security, those kind of things. Thank you.
Anybody else on Zoom?
Oh, just for conversation. How much would it cost to move it a mile away from Lake Street? The Lake Street location, ballpark figure, I know it's putting you on the spot.
7 figures.
7 figures.
And we were talking, someone did ask about next to the electric,
Right.
right, the DPW building.
DPW.
We still have to talk about getting easements across properties to connect to the transmission, getting into Lake Street, which you have to build larger 80-foot poles, probably utility poles on Lake Street all the way down. So potentially.
And more like 95
Yeah.
foot, 95 foot poles for transmission and the distribution underbuild. Yeah.
For those that keep talking about, it might be cheaper to put it someplace else. It's not cheaper to put it someplace else.
Well, isn't another concern with that? I'm remembering when we started all of this, it's not just the initial cost.
Right.
It's the ongoing cost of getting the electricity further continuously, and we lose a lot more of the electricity when we transmit it further.
Does
that make sense?
That's a component of this whole situation, that the losses that are occurring
Right.
on the electrical system from moving that 5 miles, moving electricity 5 miles to where the main load is and 9 miles to the end. It's a very lossy system. Just throwing money out the window.
And that in fact was the original motivation for moving it closer to the center of the load.
That is one of them. Yes, that is one component.
Reliability.
Yeah, I mean, it's all tied together, and we've been down these roads over the months that we've been talking about this.
Well, I would hate to see the woods get chopped down out there, and I think it'll be an eyesore, especially in the winter time. So, sadly, I'd like to see it down here.
Knew I voted for you for a reason.
Pardon?
I said, I knew I voted for you for a reason.
I was in the Sioux this weekend, their main power grid is right in front of the Sioux box,
Right.
right downtown. Hundreds of thousands of people go around it every day. And they're not concerned at all with anything. Surrounded by business storefronts, you go half a block away, there's this huge block of power. Townhouses surrounding it. It's not screened by anything other than commercial buildings.
Glad I don't live there.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff here, so, but the lesser of two evils is, I agree, it's down here. Whether, we do a lot of screening up front or we work that into budgets over time, but
Well,
you put
that's
it back here out of the way where it's, somebody's gonna have to look for it to see it. All the main transmission lines are coming in underground, right?
That is how this is.
So it's not like the old system. It's not like the Sioux is where everything is coming in above ground. So everything's underground.
Correct.
Screening can be phased in.
Well, and folks, all the folks, and I understand this is a hard, and there's no ideal place. But you all like your electricity, you all want your refrigerators to work and your lights to work, and if you're plugging your cars in, you all do want that. So we have to do something, and there's no ideal, I mean, as you almost know, I live across the street from it. Do I love the idea of putting it down here? No, I don't. But I think it's what makes the most sense with cost, even though it's a little more to put it down here. I just think for a lot of different reasons, of these two sites, this makes more sense. And we have looked at a lot of other sites. We have looked for commercial sites. We've been at this for a long time now.
I've looked at other public parcels like Kiwanis Park.
Right.
Some of them had deed.
Well, if we don't do this sooner than later, we're gonna run into bigger issues.
So Michael, I don't know if you want to expand on that, what are the issues? that
Would
we're
you
facing?
explain to those of us that haven't know what could happen down the road with some of the expansions going on?
Even where the system, again, is at today, the majority of the year, if one of the two substation transformers at Clayton Road substation is lost, doesn't matter how that's lost, mechanical failure, vandalism, sad to hear what happened. Okay, doesn't matter how it's lost, end of life. Those have now been in service for 30 years. If we lose one of those the majority of the year, you can't keep all the lights on. Somebody's not gonna have power. We did the study, we were asked to be brought in to look at the study, to look at your reliability. And this is, I mean, it's kind of a hard thing to say if we lose one of them out there, and that's not just on the 4th of July, middle of January, that's off season. And when my phone rings as your consultant, you say, what do we do? The problem is to buy a new one is years right now. That's the key component right there, is reliable electricity. A number of years ago, relationships were in place, the ability to share equipment, consumers energy, mobile substations, all of that used to be 10 years ago was easy. Today, we can't let any piece of material go. We pick up the phone and try to share. Nobody wants to share because nobody has it. It's a fact of life where we're at today. Now, going forward, the electrification that is happening by our choice as people that, as consumers of electric vehicles and further electrification, to be able to support that kind of load will require another substation. Now, I don't know, and we did some research. We've looked at regional transmission organization studies. If that is going to be in 2 years or 5 years, we don't know that, but it is absolutely coming. And you want to be prepared for that when that time comes. If that's 5 years from now, and this substation takes us 3 years from today to build, that's 3 years have gone by. So we need to be prepared for what is coming down the road and be prepared ahead of time.
So what you need today is a motion to select one of the two sites and to move forward with detailed plans. Well, I would make that motion, that we select the police, the backyard here at the police department and move forward with detailed plans.
I'll second.
Matt Boogera,
Yes.
Jamie Belkey,
Yes.
John Leo,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell,
Yes.
and John Cops.
Yes.
Motion carried.
So I'll sit down with Michael and Dan Huey, electric superintendent, and we'll start sketching out some details. That's it.
Thank you.
And as part of that, you will add the incremental cost to the things that
Absolutely.
we talked about.
We've talked about vegetation screening, we'll look at walls, we'll look at even enclosing it in a building, we'll look at security cameras, we'll look at lights, all that will be on the plan. As well as getting the
System.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a big one.
not gonna be a big cost. It's part of it.
Anyway, because I'm supposed to have it coming out of the box, so that's part and parcel.
So then we can-
Careful.
All right, item 3C, Atlas Cell Tower lease proposal. Atlas Tower, this is a company that's been sending this out to municipalities and school districts around wherever they see public property, they send out a
Thank you.
lease. Thanks, Michael. A proposal to have us lease them some of our land so they can then sublease that land to a cellular provider to build a tower. Of course, as you know, only council can accept or reject leases and contracts, so that's why I'm bringing it to you. Their proposal on the positive side is, minimum $850 a month. So over 30 years is $300,000. That seems like a lot, but really that's, if you think about it, it's only not even 10% of 1 year of our general fund expenses. So while $300,000 seems like a lot for 30 years, you could also make a case that it's not a lot. It could potentially improve the cellular service in the area, and it's located in or near the industrial area. However, some of the negatives is, a tower there, a large tower, will have some aesthetic concerns, height concerns, especially relative to surrounding properties. It'll be located near parks and school property, reduces the available city space for storage or DPW needs. And there's no guarantee that a cellular company will actually, put a tower there. I've talked to its staff, I talked with Lucas especially, and he doesn't think it's a good site. We don't think it's a good proposal or good lease or contract for the city. Actually talking to Lucas, from a perspective of actually the best place in the city to actually put a cellular tower would probably be on the water towers at Kiwanis Park, because those are the highest. It doesn't really make sense to build a large tower on flat land. You have to build higher. So this just doesn't make sense from a lot of different
Now,
perspectives.
they came in with the proposal of where the site was.
Yep, they came.
And how high is said tower gonna be?
It depends. It could be 50, 80 feet. Depends on what company they're using. We don't know.
So it could be like the ones in Petoskey.
It could be tall.
No.
I don't see any advantage to the city at all.
No.
None.
So if there's no,
10-acre fields or something like that.
Yeah, put it out in the country somewhere. Put
so
it-
getting by consensus, no action.
Thanks, but no thanks.
All right, move on. Okay, Viewlands Dog Park discussion. The Little Traverse Conservancy has proposed the idea of creating a dog park at the former golf course there on Hideaway Valley Drive. They're looking at putting the dog park on the bottom part of the hill, quote unquote, right near the Hideaway
Little
Drive.
Park 5.
Yep, and there you go. And they're looking to have a collaboration between the Conservancy and several municipalities and other organizations. And one of their ideas is, you have the municipalities contribute at least for some of the maintenance, ongoing maintenance. We've had a lot of requests for dog parks in the city throughout the years, and we just haven't been able to find a good location for it, or that's at least satisfied a lot of different needs. This one would create a regional dog park that's about 5-6 miles out of town, but would still create a place for dogs to go. So really, We're not looking for a council to vote yes or no. I think we're looking for a discussion whether the council would like to see more details and more of a detailed plan from the Conservancy on what the funding would look like and the park would look like and what kind of maintenance costs would be involved. And then to bring that back to council, then have a vote on whether or not the council wants to participate, the city to contribute some funds to the ongoing maintenance of it. I think there is a image, just a brief image they provided of what the park would look like. There'd be a large dog park fenced in area, as you see here in the kind of middle bottom of the screen, and there'd be a smaller and a dog park, sorry, right here. This right next to this gray area. These would be the restrooms, parking areas right here as well. So we would pave those. So this is the dog park. It's about 6 acres or so, I think, total between the two different large dog park and the small dog park. Because my question to council, I know you've Rachel invited you out to some of you to look at the site to take a look at it, walk through. I guess here is, what information you would like to see if you want to go forward, considering this as an option, contribute some funds toward it, or if not, we can tell the Conservancy Council's not interested.
Is Rachel working on that?
She's
Still?
working with them, yep,
Yeah.
Conservancy, but really at this point, before we work further, we want to know if council wants to continue with getting more information and data.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I don't know about contributing to the building of it, but I think the maintenance of it, I mean, people in town will use it.
And I think Rachel, speaking for her, but I think she's working with the Conservancy to reach out to the other municipalities around, to try to figure out a plan to where each donates X amount to keep the cost minimal for everybody.
So it'd be very similar to how the townships donate, or they'll contribute money to the city for the beach and for the skate park because they have residents that use it. So it's a similar concept as we have some residents that are using the dog park, the cost share, yeah.
So all we're talking about today, though, is just finding out more.
Yeah, if you guys want to continue, because we don't want to spin our wheels if it's something that you don't want to get into, but if something you're interested in, we will pursue it further.
Yeah, the space is good. It's not cramped. I mean, talking 5-6 acres for dogs to run around.
And it's a recurring theme. People are interested in having access to a dog park, so why not learn more? We're not committed to it.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, keep us informed.
Okay, moving on. Item 3E, the short-term rental cap / moratorium. So last council meeting, council approved capping the short-term rentals at 61 in R1 zoning districts, which are single-family zoning districts. And the reason 61 was chosen was because that's the number of existing licenses that were given out in 2022. So in those single-family districts. This would not place a cap on short-term rentals in other zoning districts. It gives existing license holders priority for obtaining the short-term rental license in 2023. And it would expire on September 30th, 2023 to give the Planning Commission time to propose new ordinance for limiting short-term rentals as well as creating selection criteria. So this is something that council already approved last meeting, but now we're formalizing it in an administrative ordinance to make sure that the verbiage we have reflects what council wants and intended with their motion. And we have now an administrative ordinance that would last until September 30th that Jim Raymer has prepared, and it'll give the Planning Commission some more time to look at that selection criteria that you had some concerns about and questions about, as well as fleshing out some more details about the number.
Why the September date? Why not more towards the end of the year?
From my understanding, administrative ordinances, well, Jim, if you want.
I think it's just a question of establishing a time limit, whether it's at the end of the year or September 30th, it's your call.
I didn't know if that had something to do with the current licensing or how that worked for renewals or whatever.
No, it's nothing to do with the license. I think, as Jim says, you can't have a administrative ordinance and like a moratorium go on indefinitely. So you have to put some sort of end date that's a reasonable end date that you assume you can get this ordinance language.
And you could always extend it.
You can always extend it.
Listening to the meeting, I wasn't here for that one, but you guys capped it, or the discussion was to cap it at 61 because people have already booked for next season.
That's part of it, yeah.
part
That's
of
the
it.
discussion.
So anyways, if we expire, if it expires on September 30th, 23, people are gonna already be booked for 24 at that time, so maybe make it in June. I don't know if the planning commission can move that fast. Before the summer season.
Right.
Because we're gonna run into the same problem next year in September of 23.
So
There's-
if they came back, if the planning commission came back again with a reduction
Right, if they come back.
for those that would not get a license, you got the same problem they would have now.
Right, they're gonna have to call these people and say you can't come.
Yeah.
And given what Jim said, that we can extend it, if June comes around or May comes around and we're not close to getting something, we can then extend it further to, if need be, to September.
They said that would be my only issue with what's up there.
Now, can you end the moratorium sooner than the date on the ordinance?
It's your call.
So you can do it either way. You can leave it as September and end it earlier. You can do it in June and extend it if they're not ready.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true.
We'll make a recommendation on planning commission to try to have us something.
And, those guys are so bogged down now, they can't.
There's a lot on the plate.
Yeah, they gotta pull it in.
Right.
I think it would be okay to change it to a June date.
And then if they really can't get it done, we can always ask for an extension. Yeah, there's a lot on our planning commission plate, but we are having an extra meeting to deal with the zoning. So that lightens up some of the other, I agree with you. And my other comment about it is where it says that the folks that have licenses get priority. How are we handling that? Is there a cutoff date that they have to turn it in by a certain time, like the existing licenses by February 1st? We can't just leave no end date.
So our current, I think we'd be following our current system, which is you can apply any time in the year. I believe that's what it was. So
So how do they get priority? And then, I mean, I
we
think
would have to put some sort of,
there needs to be a date
A
that
date
says
which-
by this point, then your priority ends and it's. Then anyone could get them.
I think we even discussed it at the last meeting. There's some details to be worked
so
out.
but we would need to establish that.
But it needs to go in the ordinance.
Yeah, by February 1st, maybe I would think, or well, March. don't know.
I think we have to put it in
Probably
the
February.
ordinance, right? If we're saying they get priority until such a day. And then after that, anyone
It's
could.
priority over non-license holders. So if you begin to get applications from people that don't have a current license, how do you reach it?
That's what I mean.
So we-
It needs to be a date.
I talked with Jeff and we're going to send out a letter to all the existing license holders, letting them know of this, and we should give them.
They have priority on February 1st or whatever it is. Yeah.
I think that would, it could be earlier than February, but I think
That gives them a month, January to February.
Okay.
You know, it's gonna follow the facts that.
we can add something in there.
So.
That creates a deadline of February 1st for existing license holders
They have their.
to make a decision whether or not they want. And then it would become a first come, first.
Yeah.
First come, first served.
And how did you come up with February 1st?
I'm just assuming by the time we get out the letters to people to let them know that this is existing license holder and give them some time to get an application together to review. It could be earlier, January.
6 weeks
I think
or
that's
7
That's
weeks.
plenty of
With the holidays?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Fair. That's sort of how the boat mooring.
Mhm.
Works. They send out
Yes.
your paperwork in January. And you have till February 1st, I think, to send in your money saying that, yes, you want to continue with your particular mooring or dock, I guess, doesn't matter. So they give you this is the date, and you better have your money.
And folks that have bookings are gonna be paying attention to.
Well,
renewing
everybody's
their
gonna
license
be,
anyway.
they're gonna be
So,
motivated.
Yeah, I would just make it February 1st.
So February 1st, and what date in June did you want? Was it June 1st, June 30th for the
No.
June 30th, 6 months? That gives us 6 months to
Yeah.
20.
Yeah, it's June 30th. See how that goes.
So the first priority for existing license holders they would have priority if they applied between January 1 and February 1. After that, it's just first come, first served.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, it expires June 30th.
With the option to extend, council can always extend it.
And can we go ahead with the administrative ordinance with, make a motion with changes, or do we have to wait until we get a hard copy of it?
Well, I think I understand what you want to do. If you want to make the motion to amend or to adopt it, subject to providing that the existing license holders would have a first priority on renewals until February 1, and after that date, it would be based on first come, first serve. And that the ordinance would be in effect until June 30th of 2023.
Right.
If that's what your decision is, I can make those changes and we'll get it published.
I'll second.
Who made the motion?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant more.
I will make it.
Yeah, what he said.
But being this is a contentious subject, I guess we should ask if there's any public comment.
Just forgive my ignorance. Is there a laugh that? And forgive me. Is there a map that shows the area that encompasses the 61 properties?
Yeah, we have those maps. If you want to email us, we can get that to you. We present them at previous meetings, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Just no
We
public
have two
comment.
people on Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
We have, I don't know this gentleman's name, but John Fox. Yeah, all right, John.
Oh, yeah, hi, John Fox, Rochester, Michigan, and 309 Pine Street. I missed the last meeting, so I was not aware of the 61. But I guess my first question would be, why would the existing 61 be granted? And do you have a plan then to create criteria to start from scratch to make sure that the 61, or whatever the number ultimately is, achieves the criteria that the city seems acceptable to be a short-term rental?
You want me to answer that or?
Yeah, yes.
So I'll answer it. The first question is 61 was chosen in part because that's existing licenses. And if we're putting a moratorium, the idea was that those ones would be grandfathered in such a way while this moratorium or cap is in place. And the second thing is the Planning Commission did create criteria for evaluating short-term rentals, but that's not going to apply to this round as the council wants the Planning Commission to re-examine the criteria that they developed. And so this 61 would go through, all they would have to do is meet the existing criteria in our existing ordinance on short-term rentals, which are still fairly, there's definitely some criteria there, but it wasn't as extensive as what was prepared by the Planning Commission. So
And Victor.
nothing's going to change. Yep.
Okay, I guess the follow-up question is, two questions. Does this apply to a home that is a full-time rental home? Or does this apply to a resident that, or has a second home that would rent it out, 5-8 times a year?
Both.
They're both short.
Yeah.
Applies to both.
If it's rented for less than 30 days a month. it's
Okay, so
considered short-term
30
rental.
days. And then I guess the follow-up there would be, does a license cover one rental, or does one license cover one home?
One home.
One dwelling unit.
Yeah, one home.
And so that would raise the question, if in fact we have residents that come in and purchase property with the, they might want to rent it out 5-8 times a year, whatever it be, or even a full time, it really doesn't matter. How will they then be considered in the future I'm not sure how many people in town own more than one rental. But what I could see down the road is, hey, we're fortunate. We have great demand from Harbor Springs. People want to come visit. The tourism is great. We don't have hotel accommodations like other cities, like a Petoskey or anywhere else. So short-term rentals, I would imagine, have been around quite a long time. Just it didn't become popular, at least for everybody to see, until technology blossomed with Airbnb and VRBO, right? So how do you continue to support people that want to offer this in Harbor Springs, especially if you continue to have somebody with multiple rentals grow in that population of, call it 61. Those are things I think we need to consider as we move forward in this new criteria. And if we have problems with short-term rentals today, it's probably coming from one of the 61. So we have to make sure that we have in our future plan how we address those and address somebody who might have a license but isn't supporting the criteria that we would want as a city.
Thank you, John. Bill Mulder.
Hello, Council. Hello, Victor. This is Bill Mulder, 372 West Summit Street, and a member of the Planning Commission. And we'll take another swing at this for you if that's what you're asking us to do. And regarding tonight's resolution, there's a fine point. There were actually 2 more zoning codes that were in the original recommendation from the Planning Commission, and they are AR, which is agricultural residential, which covers mostly, in this case, Harbor Street. And then MHP, our mobile home community as well. So that's another amendment you could consider. Either way, we'll take a swing at it for you next time. Thanks.
They are single family and
There were,
mobile home park. I don't think they allow short-term rentals anyway, but.
Rentals aren't allowed.
They don't.
We could.
They're not allowed.
You can put
owners
it in,
have
but
to
it's not
live
allowed.
in those, yeah.
If you wanted to add those AR and MHP, we can.
HB is kind of a non-starter because it's not allowed in there.
But AR.
They are.
Yeah, I guess they are. We have a public comment.
I have public comment, yes, thank you. Thank you, City Council, for listening to the Planning Commission and its recommendations for short-term rental guidelines. You pointed out the need for more clarity, for closing loopholes, and most importantly, you voted in favor of a moratorium. This will be very helpful as the Planning Commission and citizens of Harbor Springs move forward, so I thank you. When the city ordinance code was amended and the zoning code amended back in 2019, I believe, no limits were put on short-term rentals. So here we are, responding to the needs at hand. Now we need to right-size number of rentals in relation to the number of households and not lose sight of what's good for our community. We have approximately 1,100 single-family homes, 5.5% of which are rentals. I believe our numbers should not go any higher than what we have today. Through my own research, I found that communities around the state are landing on a similar percentage number they wish to maintain. According to an article in Realtor Magazine, many realtors feel that a single-family home next door to a short-term rental where the occupants change every few days will take longer to sell, elicit lower offers, and bring down the value of one's home. Community is made up of neighbors. Renters are not neighbors. We can't go back to the black and white photos, but we can bring the small town charm and values forward from those times. We can embrace change and help guide it with our shared community values in mind. What is for the greater good? And how are we aligning to the city's master plan, which says, and I quote, "Single-family residents strongly prefer homes in these neighborhoods not be used as short-term rentals, which they believe erodes the pleasant small town feeling," unquote. We have an opportunity to, one, save the ideals introduced by our founders as we put guardrails around short-term rentals, and two, embrace change with a 21st century view. Community is needed now more than ever. I urge the council to hear their constituents and not recommend a larger number of rentals. The Planning Commission and citizens will work to address this council's concerns during this moratorium as we all fine tune the guidelines. We can come to a common ground for the common good. Thank you. And I am Margie Marks, and I live at 818 Harbor Street. Happy holiday. Stop.
Oh, I got one more.
Yeah, Tony Johnson, 430 Maple Street. I don't have a dog, excuse me, a dog in the race here at all. I'm just, excuse me, looking for a little clarity on if there is going to be a limit put on the number of short-term rentals. Has there been consideration given to how that would be policed and enforced? Obviously, you know, there's going to be people that want to go outside of the rules. And I think to be fair and equitable, people who are doing the right thing, that there needs to be consideration to people who are breaking the rules.
Yeah, we do have rules in effect.
So we'll continue using Harmari to identify those properties. So Harmari is an organization, an internet-based organization. They track the dozens of different short-term rental websites like Airbnb, and they look at them for people who are renting out rentals. And if one comes in that doesn't have a license in the city, they alert us to say, hey, this person is renting out rental in your community. They don't have a license. So then we put our enforcement on that. So yes, it's important. Enforcement is important. It's probably going to be probably need more of it because we already do have roughly probably between 10 and 20 unregistered short-term rentals anyway. So I'm sure we'll have more of it. So it's something
Which should be part of what the planning commission take a look at.
And we have one of the things that we have changed is we have expedited our enforcement process. So it used to be one letter by another letter, 3 letters before we actually did enforcement. Now it's either one letter, or if it's more serious, it's a police officer straight to the door. So we are expediting that enforcement process.
Are there any current short-term rentals in the AR district that? Okay. So it wouldn't change. Okay.
I didn't see any of
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Or maybe it was
Okay.
one.
Yeah, there is.
So then you would want it to be 62 if we're gonna include that, right?
I think the 61 was the number.
Including that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we went back and forth on that a couple of times.
I think we just neglected to put AR in the.
Okay.
In the.
Just making sure there's not anyone left out.
Yeah.
All right. So anyways, we have a motion to do whatever it is.
To adopt the amendments of February 1st,
Mr. Raymer. With the amendments.
what that Mr. Raymer said, plus adding the AR.
We're gonna add AR. Okay.
So your second amendment, your second motion, you're actually making the motion.
Yeah.
He's making a motion, and I'm seconding it.
Very good. Matt O'Gara, Nancy Rondell,
Yeah.
John Cox,
Yes.
Jamie Milky,
Yes.
and John Leo.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yeah, that's when we go out of order and things.
Yes, that's great.
All right, final agenda item, reviewing the citizen comment rules. Last meeting, council wanted me to look at how different communities throughout Michigan take public comment and citizen comment, and as you probably guessed, it's a wide variety throughout the different municipalities. I talked with city managers in northern Michigan, as well as did some research on towns and cities downstate. And generally, there's 3 approaches. You can have public comment at the beginning of the meeting, public comment in the middle of the meeting during the agenda items, or public comment at the end. Some communities choose only one of those options. Some choose 2. I haven't seen one that my research does all 3, but usually 2 seems pretty common. Most usually allow public comment at the beginning of the meeting. I think on this list you see about 90% do. It's more mixed as far as whether they allow comments during discussion items and fewer allow comments at the end, especially in the bigger cities though. For example, Ann Arbor's a bigger city. They allow only 45 minutes of public comment in the beginning. And then all the other public comment they allow at the end of the meeting. Some other cities require residents to fill out a card or contact City Hall by 5 p.m. that day before, like 2 hours before the meeting starts, to let them know that they want to make a comment on a specific agenda item. And they get one chance to comment throughout the whole meeting, but they get to choose which agenda item they want to. But our rules currently exist. We have 3 minutes for something you can speak that's not on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, or you can speak on any of the agenda items for 3 minutes. Again, it's a wide variety. I mean, there's plenty of that council can choose from. We can stick with the same. We can allow comments at the beginning, but not during the rest, or allow comments at the beginning and end. Change the amount of minutes they speak. Allow them 5 minutes at the beginning, and no comment during the discussion topics. We've heard from other people saying that one of the concerns is, well, they don't, they want to hear what council says before they comment. But really, public comment really is something that council has reviewed the material, the public has reviewed the material. Public gives their opinion to council, and council takes that in consideration when they are discussing the topic. So that's generally how public comment goes, and that's why usually everyone has public comment at the beginning, at least. Different communities have different success with different approaches. I've talked to some where they said it can, some of their meetings can turn into debate and question and answer sessions, when really they're supposed to be just public comment sessions, and council discusses. Others have had no problems with the way they set it up. So it just depends on a lot of different factors and topic at hand. I could do more research, but it's pretty good. That's pretty much standard. It's a variety, I should say, but it's pretty much standard to have, for the most part, comments at the beginning of the meeting. And 3 minutes is generally the standard time. Some communities do less, most are 3, some have done 5, but 3 minutes, it seems to be a standard public comment time. Oh, and then Troy was an interesting one, where they allowed city residents to speak before at the beginning, and then required non-residents to speak at the end of meetings, which was, I don't know how that works, but well, Troy's a much bigger city, right? So they probably have tons of comment. Yeah.
For the case where people had to send in a card prior to the meeting, does that imply then that they didn't take commentary from people who just showed up and wanted to
Correct.
comment?
Yep. The rules are that if you want to make a public comment, because they have so many people wanting to comment, they'd be there for like 10, 12 hours.
And the OMA allows that?
So the way I understand it, the OMA allows, everyone has a right to speak, but you can determine the rules for how that happens. So if your rule is that, you require them to sign up before the meeting, they still have the right to speak, but they just have to sign up before the meeting. So
Interesting.
I don't know if that's been tested in the courts or not, but that's.
You always learn something new.
No public comment without a month's notice. Well, I don't have a problem with what we currently use. I just think with the hot topics, we need to be a little more strict on the timeline. For the most part. A stopwatch. Right.
We have talked about potentially getting a stopwatch or a buzzer or something like that.
I think
I think it'd be really, really helpful to have something that gave everybody a cue as to where they are in their 3-minute time period.
Or even like Bonnie did, candidates, just a sign, you have 30 seconds left.
Yeah, we could have Nick.
Green, red.
I said Nick can go there.
Jackson's gonna be really fast.
I think it would be interesting to try public comment just at the beginning about anything that agenda items as well as open public comment. With the mayor having the option, if it's a topic that there's really a lot of input on the people, that you could open it up to that on that specific subject. Tonight was a great example. Everybody was very polite and very, that if it always was this easy, it would be great. In all honesty, it isn't always. And I think it might be interesting to try, because it does eliminate the questions in the debate, which really isn't the point of public comment. It's really you guys making a comment to us so we can consider that. It's not a back and forth, and that's what happen sometime. So I think it might be interesting to try to just take all public comment at the beginning of the meeting on everything and see. Because people can do their homework, they can get the agenda, they get it as soon as we do, they jump online, so they have time to do that, and I think about doing it starting January 1st, you know, not during budget season, leave it as it is for the rest of this year. I just think that might be.
We could try it for a month without amending our rules or.
You get, these rules are your rules, so you can try for how long as you want and make it a temporary amendment, yeah.
Try it in January.
We only have one meeting, we have one meeting in January.
I was gonna say, I would try
January,
it for a
February.
few months
Right.
and see how we feel about it, how the public feels about it. And you always would have, in mind, you'd always have the option to open it up. If it was a subject that people really felt like, you know, they can only talk about it at a time. But I think it might be interesting to see if it didn't make the meetings a little bit more efficient sometimes.
It would have been those hot button items, I think. Definitely speed things up.
Well, it makes people think it through.
I think it gives the council and you more control. You can always open it
Yeah,
up.
Right.
I think I agree with Nancy. Let's give it a try.
I think it might be a good thing to try and see I'll see how we like it.
Let's maybe try for January, February, March, the winter months.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And then
So
evaluate it.
the rule would be to allow 3 minutes of public comment at the beginning of the meeting under citizen comment section for any agenda topic, and then the council and our mayor can decide to open it up. I don't, other, if they feel like, if you want to, if you think it's appropriate.
What if they want to speak on all the agenda items?
They have 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3
They
minutes.
have 3 minutes.
Not fast, pick one.
Well, I think it encourages people to really think through what they want to say.
Right.
When they read the agenda, they read the supporting material, they really think about it. And it makes it a little bit more concise and to the point. I think it might be a good thing.
And it still allows for written public comment that people can
Oh,
submit
yeah.
at the time, and that
Letters.
doesn't have to be 3 minutes. So I guess we should open it up to public comment.
Yeah.
I thought we did that.
We're doing it again.
My name is Carol Leonard. I live at 141 Snyder Street. And I was really pleased to see that this review, particularly section 12, caption decorum, was included. We all certainly have strongly held positions on various topics and issues that the city's dealing with. But that doesn't, in my opinion, excuse the rude, inconsiderate personal attacks that some members of this community continue to spew at city employees and city council and commission members. Behavior doesn't belong in a civil society and discourages many residents from participating in discussions and attending meetings as they're leery about becoming the target of such attacks. It's not in the best interest of the community that we all love. In order for the city to move forward on many of these issues, we need everyone to participate by offering positive suggestions and potential solutions for consideration, not vitriolic personal attacks. I appreciate the hard work done by the city employees and the city council and commission members to consider the various positions that residents have on all of these issues. And I hope that we can start working together to develop solutions in a professional, respectful manner.
Thank you.
Yeah. We make a motion or anything?
We have a comment on Siri.
Oh.
Margaret's iPad. Margaret?
Just so I'm clear, you're asking for us to only give comment at the very beginning on the agenda items, not after the presentation has been made. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is this is Maggie Lacy?
Yes.
Yes, that's.
That is correct.
That's
Okay. So I have an issue with this because a lot of times, just as the presenter discussed talking about the transformer, there was information that was given that maybe we were not privy to. Even if you did your homework, looked over the information that you'd want to give comment to, And I don't believe that it is adequate on giving the freedom of speech, being able to give input by not having the ability to have a comment after the presentation has been made. And so I do discourage only being able to have the comments at the very beginning of the meeting because a lot of the information is very one-dimensional versus having that conversation going back and forth, being able to think through based on the information that's given. So I do not recommend that we go forward with what you are suggesting.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm Chip Evers, yeah, again, at 4 Beach Drive. I would, I mean, I totally agree with the decorum principle. We're all here, we're all people, so we're all gonna be civil with each other. But not allowing us to comment after we gain more information after the comments is, I don't think it's right either. So I would not be for what you're suggesting at all. I mean, having more information than having the ability to comment on it like we're doing right now, I think is very beneficial. But again, always in the concept of having a high level of decorum and respect for each other.
So we wouldn't eliminate the public comment on certain topics.
Then you pick the topic. I mean, this topic I wouldn't have even cared about, but now I do care about it, so, gotcha.
Sergeant Marks, 818 Arbor Street. I didn't get it. I wouldn't think about speaking to this as well, but it's what I heard you say that everyone spoke at the beginning and then mayor could open it up after more information is given. Would that be at your discretion, or could the public then say, excuse me, Mr. or Madam Mayor, would you open it up?
Would be at the mayor's discretion.
I'm sorry?
The council's discretion or my
Okay.
discretion,
Okay.
mayor's discretion.
And I also thought about, when some people speak a little longer than the 3 minutes, and you're wondering, you've done a great job trying to rein them in, and other than the hook, maybe some music, like from the Oscars, when they do that.
Or we could go on the slap like got Will Smith.
Wendy Hershey, I guess after listening to this and thinking about it, I would like you to continue to have comments in the middle, after the discussion, but I do think that holding it to the 3 minutes is a good idea. And that hasn't been happened, and then the meetings are really long for you, so thank you.
The other option that I think, I don't know if I put that in there, was to keep 3 minutes at the beginning, but shorten the time for the agenda item discussions instead of 3 minutes, because theoretically then someone could have 3 minutes at each agenda item. If there's 10 items, they could have a half an hour to speak, which hasn't happened, but it could happen, where people, so maybe limiting, maybe taking that time, rolling that time back from 3 minutes at the agenda items to 2 or to 1, I don't know. If that's just another suggestion.
Well, it's interesting, because sometimes we do public comment before we talk and let public talk first. And then sometimes we do it after we talk. So if we give public comment before we have our discussion, it's the same thing as what people are objecting to now, is that they don't have a chance to talk back, but respond. So
I think that's an important point, is whether or not, it prevents it from turning into a debate or question and answer session. If the whole goal of public comment is for the public to give their opinion to council on a matter, it's not to debate or discuss with council. It should be, so
it always should be before, then you would always take public comment only before council's decision. I mean, before the council's discussion.
That's what we do with public hearings, right? At the planning commission, for example, we have a public hearing. Public comment is, there's a section, then the council, or then the planning commission discusses.
And there's no more afterwards. There's none as a back and forth.
And ideally, that, it may happen that, for example, that, you know, someone's mind will change based on the council's discussion or, you know, will change, but that's, you know, it's really, you know, it's council that's making the decision, discussion. So council wants to take in the public's feedback. And as you're not really interested to know, I guess, if during a meeting, whether or not you change someone's mind or someone's mind changed based on the presentation, even though they may have. I mean, but that's really what the whole purpose of public comment is for you to process what the public already thinks.
So
it change.
So that, going on that is if all public comment is taken first thing, it serves that purpose.
Oh my gosh.
But
I think so. Well, and again, we talk about trying it, and if it doesn't work, we could.
Yeah, and if council
Try a
doesn't
different
like it and
variant.
the public doesn't like that, but the purpose of public comment is not to have a question and answer debate back and forth, which has happened in the past a number of times.
And we should probably, if we don't do this, we should stick to just doing public comment at the beginning of the agenda item. Of each agenda item instead of.
the advantage of that is that it's fresh on your mind, right? You know, if everyone goes at the beginning, it could be, you know, 45 minutes of public comment, and then, you know, you might not be fresh in your mind, but if it's at the beginning of each agenda item, then, so that's the advantage to that, where it's fresh on your mind of the topic. So there's pros and cons.
Yeah, there are.
Either way you do it.
I mean, can I just make another comment?
Maggie, there's someone else.
We got someone else in a minute.
Karen?
Hey, Karen Sheldon, like 644 Ann Street. I missed a couple of meetings because I've been out of the country, but I don't really understand what the issue is by doing public comment during, you know, specific agenda items. I'd be kind of afraid if somebody made a public comment at the very beginning, there's this huge span of time, but there's a huge discussion that happens between the initial public comment and then the comment related to specific agenda items. I'm not sure what the issue is. The issue is that people talk too long, or, you know, why did we come to this? I'm not really clear on it. I mean, if the time is held, I love the idea of, you know, music, like stopping. But it just seems to me like it's more appropriate to be really close to what the agenda item is specifically about. Because people do come up with ideas as part of hearing other people's comments as well. But I'm just afraid at the beginning, you're gonna forget, you know, what somebody said at the very beginning, and then you're on the agenda item, and maybe there's some important points that are made. So I kind of like the idea of kind of staying the way that it has been. I haven't seen what the issue's been. Thanks.
We have John Fox.
Yeah, I follow, I think the same mindset which was just said. And Victor, I think what you said just a minute or two ago, the relevancy of the comment or the educated response, I think that we could give our impression or whatever to council is going to be important on either right at the time of that presentation or after we hear that presentation. I would be concerned as well if somebody made a comment and then 60 minutes later the topic came up. Quite honestly, I'm not sure any of us have that kind of span of memory to remember those things. So I would support being relevant to the timing of the presentation, either beginning or during. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't do awesome. I'm happy with the way it is personally. I just wanted to try something new.
I feel like the majority of people think that we should keep it the way it is.
Like I like the idea that I'm speaking up front. We talk at the end. We just gotta hold.
Yeah.
Just gotta hold time.
I think if we're gonna keep it the way it is with it during agenda items, then we should have the public speak first.
Yeah.
So that we don't get into the back and forth, because it's so easy to do that. You know, it is easy for all of us to do that. And I don't know if we should leave it at 3 minutes at the beginning and 3 minutes for each agenda item.
I think 3 minutes are good.
As long as we get a buck.
We'll get a clock with a buzzer.
Get us a clock.
And I think, and it's, you know, and I get it, a lot of people don't read the packet in detail, and I understand, so then it's the first time they're hearing some things, and maybe, you know, is when we discuss it, and as Maggie said earlier, is sometimes, yes, when questions are asked, staff offer more input than was actually in the packet, because, you know, that's where the discussion goes to. So, I see that, but there also is, I guess, an onus responsibility on the residents to also, you know, be familiarized with the topic, so they can make that public comment, an educated public comment, you know, and it's a two-way street here, so I think it'd be more beneficial to council if there is public comment.
Think there'll be public comment right in the beginning. And then. I mean, I'm okay.
So we do the non-topic stuff up front, get it out of the way, and then we just dive into it.
And I'm okay with that. I was just putting it forward.
Just be a little more forceful on the rules.
Well, and I think public comment before we talk.
Yeah.
And then sticking to the 3 minutes and not, oh, I have one more thing to say.
Right.
Because we get a lot of that where someone wants to speak again. And I think that just creates a back and forth between the public too.
Yeah, unfortunately, our existing rules would say you have up to 3 minutes to speak on an agenda item, and you only can speak once, so.
Right.
You know, if someone only uses 1 minute up, you know, then theoretically, that should be, should be done, and that's up to the mayor. Use that gavel.
Is it 3 minutes per agenda item or 3 minutes total?
3 minutes per agenda.
No.
Each. So, I'm okay with that. I just wanted to clear it out
So
there.
clarify, we put it at the beginning of each topic and then look at some sort of buzzer or something that plays music or lights up or.
Well, I think what helps is to see the end of time approaching.
Something you can see.
Green, yellow, red.
Yeah, so if you're talking, you can see that you have 30 seconds left as opposed to, yeah.
Can you do that?
Yes.
Screen shares?
I can do it, the problem is it's hard for me to coordinate both.
I think we just need to.
Yeah.
Donate it to us.
Can we get a stopwatch, Kyle? Can we get a stop? I just, we'll have a little stopwatch up here, and when it hits 3 minutes, I'll change them.
I like that.
I bet it won't go over 3 minutes more than one. Here's that, I can sit back here, if you guys want, I'm at every meeting, if you wanted to display some stopwatch somewhere, that way everybody knows where we stand. Right.
I think we just need to be real consistent.
I've done basketball games for years.
Not here, so I can see it. There's a buzzer you can have the attention. Yeah, I like that.
All right, I think we're good there.
Thank you. Thanks for looking into that, Victor. Appreciate it.
Really quick, boards and commissions, last council meeting, council appointed our council reps to different boards, but the mayor, you have, you're elected to a new term, so you can either designate yourself or a citizen to serve on the board.
Do
Designate yourself. Okay.
You gotta buy a boat.
I got a vote. Never
You got a vote.
I got a vote.
Oh, you're all set.
Can't get a slip.
All right. Really quick, just a few updates of the city manager's report here. As you know, the tree did blow over, it snapped during the wind, but within a few hours, our electric department got the tree back up. They sawed it down and they had to chain to truck. So we'll see for the time being. I'm gonna talk with Dan about, what the options are going forward, but it was really gonna be, and just unfortunate that it happened. But as far as trees, we also have removed a tree on private property that had previously damaged the Andrew J. Blackbird Museum slightly. The tree is a large tree that was, branches had fallen off, and we worked together with the private property owner as well with the Historical Society because they're going to contribute some money because the tree also threatened the Shea house. So we got that tree removed. It was a concern of ours for a while. Twice branches had fallen on our Blackbird Museum. So we're glad we got that taken care of. And then finally, something about the consumer price index, the CPI for 2023 was 7.9%. What that means is for state law caps raising taxable value by 5%. That's proposal A and B. So property owners will see their CPI, their taxable value will go up by 5%. But what that means for us is, goods and services are increasing by 7.9%. So we're not seeing that in between gain between 5% and 8%. So just something to keep an eye on. That's, part of the Headley proposal A equation is, yes, property values do go up with inflation, but it's still capped at that 5%, and we're not capturing that inflation. And that's really all I have as major things. A slow month for the website. Not many people visit our website in November, but we have had some planning commission meeting where they reviewed and discussed zoning code edits. And as mentioned before, we'll take those edits when we have some general thumbs up from the planning commission to council just to review to make any comments, but not for adoption. We'll take the whole zoning code for adoption once the planning commission has reviewed the entire zoning code, but we'll eventually take the sections to council just to get some review that we can kick back to the planning commission. So we don't have hours and hours of review at the council when we come to the final zoning code.
Makes sense.
So, and that's all I have.
Any more old business? Welcome back. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we missed you.
And thank you for your reports, your monthly reports, whatever. I've heard a lot of good compliments on it, so. I think that's getting more information out to people. Good. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for coming.